Shalom Aleichem. Hope everyone is doing well. This is part two of a friendship of enemies. We learned last week, we began to delve into the relationship between Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbeinu Hagadol, and Antoninus, one of the chief generals, one of the higher ups in the Roman Empire. And we saw that they had this fabulous relationship, really of mutual respect, of admiration for each other. Rebbe would be given gifts and money from Antoninus. Antoninus was looking not only for the immediate future and caring about Rebbe, but really cared about the Jewish people. He went to learn Torah with Rebbe every day. He gave him food to drink. He like almost pampered him and saw him really as his mentor, as his teacher, as his guide, as his advisor. And the Yerushalmi we quoted last week said that he even might have converted. Rebbe said he's going to get Olam Hazeh. Here we're going to switch to a Gemara in Sanhedrin, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin just talks about the debates. You're going to see how wise Antoninus was also. Usually we have this. Maybe I have this image in my mind that they're just like they're brutes and they were just trying to kill people. But there was a wisdom and there was a sophistication to at least Antoninus. And we're going to see that Antoninus even bests Rebbe in one of the two of these cases. And finally, we're going to finish off with a Rashi that is, and the reason this relationship between Antoninus and Rebbe is critical. We, living in 2021, benefit from this relationship of Rebbe and Antoninus moving from many years back, but moving forward and obviously right now. So we are going to move to our sheet. It's the same source sheet as last week, but it starts with. But we're going to do the Maseches Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadi Aleph, Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says, Amar le Antoninus to Rebbe. So Antoninus is posing a question to Rebbe. Guf uneshama. You have a guf, you have a neshama, you have a body, and you have a soul. Yecholun lifter atzma min hadin, right? Seemingly, a person should never be able to get in trouble, right? When a person goes in 120 years to give a din v'cheshbon, to give the great accounting and to be judged for all of their mitzvos, but also all of their averos, seemingly a person could get out of trouble. Guf neshama yecholun lifter atzma min hadin. Because why? Guf omer. Kate said, what the Gemara says, Kate said, how is this possible that the working or the teamwork of the guf and the neshama could kind of excuse each other from judgment, right? They're not going to be punished from their sins. Kate said, how so? Guf omer, the guf is going to say, the body has a claim to God. It's going to say, neshama chatos. The neshama is the sinner. The neshama is the sinner. Okay? Why? Shemiyom shapir shamimeni. Why? Because once the neshama leaves the guf, he's just a body. He's just lying there. He's not doing anything. So the body's claim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be, once the neshama left me, I was done. I didn't do anything. Let's read that one more time. Guf omer neshama chatas. The guf's going to say that the neshama sinned. Why? Because from the day that it separated from me, hareinu mutal ke'even dumam. I was like a dead rock. I was like a lying rock, a silent rock, bakever in the grave. Unishama omeres, but the neshama is not going to sit by and say, I'm going to take the brunt of it. I'm going to take all the trouble. Neshama omeres guf chata. Really, the guf sinned. Shemiyom shepirashti meni. Because from the day that the guf left me, harinu parechas ba'aver ketzipor. Right? From the day it departed, I was flying in the air like a bird. I didn't do anything. I was not doing any avers. I was unable to sin. So he says, so how could a person ever be held accountable? Because the guf is going to say it was the neshama's fault. The neshama is going to say it was the guf's fault. Amar le Rebbe says back to Antoninus, let me give you a mashal. Let me give you a parable. To that how we can compare this matter. Let's say you have like a king who has a beautiful pardes, a beautiful orchard. And now we're on the second paragraph. Bakuros naos. Okay, it's the second paragraph on the sheet because now we're switching from Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph to Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis. Bakuros Nos. This orchard had a lot of beautiful figs. Rashi says that Bakuros Nos are the early stages of the figs. That's, I guess, when they're the most tasty and the most beautiful. I don't really love figs so much. I'm more of a date guy than a fig guy, if you're keeping track at home. V'hoshi bo shnei shomrim. And he has in his fig orchard, he has two shomrim. He has two guards. Echad chiger v'echad suma. One of the, I don't know, he probably didn't pay enough. But one of his shomrim, one of the guards that are watching this orchard, one's a chiger, one's a lame, one walks with a limp. V'echad suma. And one is blind. Interestingly, right, we have one person in Tanakh that we know was a chiger. Anyone guess? Anyone guess? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, Mephi-Boshet. Right? Shaul has a son named Yonatan. Yonatan has a son named Mephi-Boshet in Shmuel Bet. We are told about this person. The Torah, actually, the Tanakh doesn't call him a chiger. Uses two different phrases. Either a nichei raglayim or a piseach al shtei raglav. Interestingly, David HaMelech allows this grandson of Shaul, and the son of Yonatan, the son of his best friend, that after his family basically is wiped out, is killed, he's allowed to eat at the table. He's allowed to eat at the royal table for the rest of his life. So this guy, this king, this is a mashal, this is a parable. The king has two guards, two shomer. One is a chiger and one is a suma. One is lame, one walks with a limp, and one is blind. Bakuros naos ani robe pardes, and the chiger says to the suma, the lame man, the lame man is saying to the blind one, he says, "Oh, you should see what we're watching. There are beautiful, beautiful figs here. Bova harkiveni, come and put me on your shoulders, right? Unuviyim, I'll bring them. I'll bring them. We could eat them here, right? Meaning, well, let's do some teamwork. Rachav chiger al gabe suma." So what happens? So the chiger climbs onto the shoulders of the blind person. And he goes and he grabs them and he takes them. Liyamim, a couple of days later, Ba'al hapardes, the owner, right? The royal owner, the monarch, the Baal hapardes, the head of the orchard, the owner of the orchard comes, and what happens? His figs are missing. Amar Lahem, he says to the guards, he's obviously accusing the guards. He says, Bakuros nos heichanein. Where are my bakuros nos? Where are my beautiful figs? Amar lo. Amar lo chiger, the chiger, the lame man says, Klum yeshti raklayim lahalech. Are you looking at me? You think I could climb up and get them? Are you crazy? Amar lo suma. The blind man says, Klum yeshli einayim liros. I don't even know what I'm watching. Right? So that's his time. They both have their honest claims. Ma'asa, what does the king do? Hirkiv chiger agabi suma. This is Rebbe's answer. He's answering with a parable. He says that the chiger, right, lifted up the chiger, went onto the suma's shoulders, right, and v'dan otam ke'echad. So what does the owner do? The owner judges them as one unit, right? They both get in trouble because he realizes that it takes two to tango. It was teamwork. So Rebbe says back to Antoninos, Afa Kodesh Baruch Hu. So to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Meivi Neshama, he brings a Neshama, Vizorka Baguf, and he throws it into the guf. It's almost like the chiger is now thrown onto the shoulders of the suma. Afa Kodesh Baruch Hu, Meivi Neshama, Vizorka Baguf, and he throws it into the body. V'dano Sam Ke'echad, he judges the person, the guf and the shama, as one. He judges David Mahler as once, as a guf and as a neshama. Shnei Amar, and he quotes a pasuk to tell us this. Yikra el Shemayim me'al the al aretz ladin imo. The pasuk says, right, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to call to the heavens above him and to the earth to judge. Meaning he's going to put both of them. Yikra el Shemayim me'al. He's going to call to Shemayim, meaning neshama, right? Zu neshama. The Gemara says the al aretz ladin amo, right? And then he's going to judge the people. He's going to judge the earth. Vizeh haguf, and this is the body. First of all, an important point, I think, just in hashkafa, right? We can never, I guess, beat ourselves up too much, right? And we can never say we're too good when we sin, right? You can't just say, oh, I have great intentions. I have great intentions. my body and my neshama work in tango, right? If I'm sinning, I can't just say, oh, it's my animalistic side. There could be something here in my neshama that maybe I'm not aspirational enough, or my belief system, my emunah is not great. It always takes two. It's not, you can't divorce one from the other. They say that many of the great tzaddikim, if you the Gemara early in Brachos somewhere says that the greatest death is, I forgot where. The greatest death is no pain. You don't feel pain in death. Why? Because the neshama and the guf are so different. They never really worked in tandem together. Because the neshama was so holy, and it really was. It was like almost like taking a piece of hair out of a hot cup of milk. It just slides over. That's how the neshama but most people, their body is so intertwined with their guf that one has a negative effect or a positive effect on the other. Both of them tango together. But the tzaddikim, the neshama is so pure, it doesn't really ever get entrenched in the guf. Let's go to the next. Let's go to the next Gemara. Amar le Antoninos leRebbi. It starts with the vav alid vav amud aleph lamed. Amar le Antoninos leRebbi. So the Gemara then is going to say a different question. We're going to say these two questions, as interesting as they are, the main part is at the very end of this of these Gemaras. Amar lo Antoninos leRebbi Antoninos. Remember, the Roman general is just having these discussions. 2 weeks ago, we saw Tunas Rufus who was trying to prove Rabbi Akiva wrong and make Rabbi Akiva look bad and ultimately hold Rabbi Akiva accountable for his beliefs. Antonius is not this way. They're debating, they're learning, they're exploring. He wants to explore with Rebbe. He's not trying to attack or get Rebbe in any way. Antonius the Rebbe. Neshama, a neshama. Me'emasai nitna ba'adam. When does the neshama, does the neshama like enter the person? When did I get my neshama? When did you get your neshama? Neshama emasai nitna ba'adam. Gemara says, mishas pekida. Is it mishas pekida or mishas yitzira? Okay, is it a mishas pekida at the very moment of conception? Is that when the neshama enters into the world of this person? Obviously, gave me a good. Mishas Yitzira, or is it when the actual body begins to form? The Meiri writes that it means that that they're already getting, some of their limbs are beginning. So that was Antoninos' question to Rebbe. Amar lo, Rebbe answers, Mishas Yitzira. Rebbe says no, it's when the body begins to form. It's not that night, it's not that evening. But rather it's Mishas Yitzira. It's when the embryo begins to form. That's when it receives its neshama. Amar lo Antonius then says back to Rebbe, Efsher chatichas shel basar omed shlosha yamim b'lo melach. So he says, imagine we know that meat will become putrid if it's not salted, right? You can't just wait. The salt is going to help preserve it. So can a piece of meat remain even 3 days without salt? Ve'eno misrachet, it's not going to become putrid. It's not going to become disgusting. Ella mishas pekida. It must be, right? It must be then the neshama, which is the salt, which holds the guf really together, because the neshama is there to give really kedusha and sanctity and a mission and meaningfulness to a person. It must be that the neshama comes immediately from mishas pekida, from that initial moment when the husband and wife are together. Amar Rebbe then says, davar zeh limdani Antoninos. Rebbe says, Antoninos, you taught me something. You're right. I bow to you. I bend to you. You're correct. I see your wisdom. And it's not only that. You might think that he was just paying him lip service, and he said, you know what, Antoninos needs to. In the end, we spoke last week that even though Antoninos was all in the relationship, Rebbe, I think we saw one time that he was a little bit skeptical the whole time. He always kept Antoninos a little bit at bay, and he saw here also. You could say, you know what, he wanted him to win some, but then he says umikra misai. No. We even have a pasuk from Eov that says, Ufkudazi shamer ruchi. And what's Rebbe saying? Rebbe's saying the ruchi, my spirit enters into you, right? Guards you when you at that shas pekida, at that initial time of the relationship of the formation of the embryo of the person that's going to be born. So that's our first case. What comes first, or when does the neshama enter into the guf? Is it mishas pekida or is it mishas yitzira? Rebbe seems to say yitzira. Antoninus proves him wrong, and shows no. It must be that at the neshama, his argument wins. It must be that at the neshama enters the guf mishas pekida at the very, very earliest time. Ve'amar Antoninus the Rebbe. Antoninus asks another question to Rebbe, and this is a beautiful question. When does the Yetzer Hara begin to rule over a person? When does that happen? Mishas Yetzira or Mishas Yetzia? Interestingly, that Antoninus doesn't ever believe that the Yetzer Hara can come at the very beginning. Either it's Mishas Yetzira, right? Maybe when the baby is still in utero and the baby is beginning to grow and the body is beginning to form and be created. So maybe the Yetzer Hara, that's when the Yetzer Hara enters into the body, even not yet fully formed guf, the not yet fully formed baby. Perhaps that's when the Yetzer Hara enters the body. Oh, Mishas Yetzia, or when it comes out, birth. What is it? Amar lo, Rebbe says, Mishas Yetzira. It is from the time when the baby the formation of the baby, right? So interestingly, according to Rebbe would say that both the neshama and the guf are Mishas Yetzira. He's proven wrong by Antoninus about the neshama, and let's see what happens. So his answer is Mishas Yetzira. He says at the time of the formation, when the embryo begins to grow. Amar lo, Antoninus says back to Rebbe, if this is so, bo'et bimei imo v'yotzi. Now, everyone's going to be thinking about the same question, and the Mefarshim also address this. We're not going to address it, but if you're thinking about this question, the question is an excellent question because Mefarshim ask. Okay? Right? Usually, if it's an obvious question, or you think it's an obvious question, and you look around the Mefarshim, and they don't ask the question, you have two choices, right? There are probably two things that are happening. Either it really is an awesome question, or it's a really horrible question and you're missing some basic information, and that's why no one else asks your question. You think it's great, but you're just missing something. Here, if you're going to ask this question, it is a very good question because the Mefarshim ask this question. So Antonino says, Rebbe, you're wrong. It's not Mishas Yetzira. It's not the formation of the embryo, but rather Mishas Yetzira. It's at the formation, Mishas Yetzia, when the animal, Mishas Yetzira. Amar lo Rebbe Mishas Yetzira. Rebbe said Yetzira, formation. Amar lo, Antoninus is saying that can't be Yetzira. It has to be Yetzia. Why? Because if it was that you would get your Yetzer Hara, right? If it was that you would get your Yetzer Hara while you were still in utero, when your body was forming, every time you pass Jeff's, or you pass Dodger Stadium, or you pass a candy store, or you pass something else that you want to pass the mall, whatever it is that gets you excited, that tickles your fancy, that you want to go. I want to go to this place. I want to pass Disneyland. It would be kicking to get out. It would want to get out. Im kain boed b'me'io. It would be kicking b'me'ei in the stomach, in the inside of the mother. V'yotzi. It's going to want to go out. So it must be ela mishas yetzia. Rather, it must be that what? Mishas Yetzia, that when does a Yetzer Hara come to a person? A Yetzer Hara only comes to a person when they come out, when they are born. Everybody asks the question, right? The Mefarshim asks the question. Okay, what are you talking about? Esav, it seems like he had his Yetzer Hara in it, right? We're not gonna focus on that, but good question. Amar Rebbe says Davar zeh limdoni Antoninus. This is what I also learned. This is a matter that I also learned from Antoninus Unikra Misayo, right? We have a pasuk that answers Shenemar La Petach Chatas Roves. At at the opening, meaning when the baby is born, when it enters the world, that chatas rovetz, sin is roves, is crouching down, is getting ready to go. Meaning sin, Yetzer Hara, is at the opening, is right there, is given to the baby, is given to the baby when he or she is born. So amazing. Antoninos wins a debate with Rebbe. Let's see what we go. Let's see where we are next. So those are our three different discussions and debates that we have here in this Gemara in Sanhedrin. I just want to point out one comment of Rashi from the Gemara, one comment of the Gemara from last week. Now we're at the end of Antoninus' life, and the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, from basically the sources that we saw last week, Ki Shachiv, when he lied down, meaning when Antoninus died, when he passed away, Amar Rebbe. What did Rebbe say? Nisparda Chavila. The bonds, the ropes, have been loosened. What does that mean? So Rashi explains beautifully here. Rashi says on the very top of the Amud, why I think this is a beautiful language is based on a pasuk that we have in Vayigash. Ahavatonu, our love, the love between us. Rebbe saying, right, that the bonds, the bundle has unraveled. So our love, shenikshara nefesh benefesh. It's almost like our bodies or our souls were bundled together. They were tied. Nikshara, kashur, likshur. A kesher is a knot. They were tied nefesh benefesh, right? Soul to soul. Soul to soul. Why is that an amazing thing? First of all, it's an amazing thing because he's saying about this Roman general that they were like soulmates to a certain extent, right? But we know at the end of Rishon, of Parashas Vayigash, when Yehuda is trying to get Yosef, he doesn't know it's Yosef, but he wants Yosef to give back Binyamin because he doesn't want to go back to Yaakov without Binyamin, and he describes the love between Yaakov and Binyamin, a father and a son. It says, if I come back to my father, and the nar, meaning Binyamin, Yehuda is saying, is not with us, it's going to be horrible. Why? Because nafsho kshura binafsho, because his soul is bound up, his kosher is bound up in his soul. Meaning my father Yaakov, his soul is bound up in the soul of his son, of Binyamin, who you are like keeping as a who you're keeping as a hostage. So here we have the same language that the Torah uses about Yaakov and Binyamin. Rashi uses to explain the phrase of nisparda chavila, that the bundle has unraveled, to explain the relationship between Rebbe and Antoninus. Now let's go. Why is this whole relationship important? This whole relationship is crucially important because of a comment that Rashi makes in Bav Metzia. Rashi says that perhaps you could argue that if Rebbe and Antoninus never had this relationship, we might never have a Mishnah. We might have never had the organization of the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Rebbe Yehuda Anasi might have never had the opportunity to organize and orchestrate and put together what we know as the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the first book of Torah Sheba'al Peh that was written. It's the most important book. The Gemara is an elaboration and an explanation of an expansion of the Mishnah. And he says if Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai couldn't have written the Mishnah. Why? Because there wasn't peace. Right? Sometimes in wartime and craziness, so things happen. Right? If we weren't going through a pandemic, we would never have a vaccine so quickly. Right? So some things, when things need to get done, and there's pressure and this and that. So yeah, so things happen, things take place, right? But sometimes you just need a sense of calm and peacefulness and time to read and time to investigate and time to research and time to look into. And Rashi's going to say that, you know what? The fact that Rebbe and Antoninus had this relationship and there was peace, and Rebbe kind of knew that Antoninus would protect him and that everything was going well, there was a calmness, they weren't running, and he was able to do the necessary research in order to be able to put the Mishnah together. And that's why these shiurim, these past 2 weeks, is so important. Because what's hayotze midvareinu? What comes out? Who cares? They had a great relationship. No. Their relationship led to the editing and the publishing of the Mishnah. Rashi, the last source, at the end of the last line, we'll read some of it, the end of the first line. Shemisharabu Talmidei Shammai veHillel. When Shammai and Talmidim, with Shammai and Hillel, their schools grew larger, the yeshivas grew larger, and they had more and more Talmidim. Shayulufanov Shlosha Doros, there were like 3 generations of students. Rabu Machlokas. The amount of disagreements between the schools of Shammai and the schools of Hillel just increased. Batorah. The Nasis Kishtei Torahs, and so sadly, what happened? It was Nasis Kishtei Torahs. It was almost like there were 2 different Torahs, right? There was the Shammai Torah and the Hillel Torah. Third line, Umitoch ol shibud malchios, and because of the yoke of the dictatorships and the basically the Roman Empire, the decrees and all their rules and the servitude, that Rome enacted and decreed on the Jewish people. Because of this, they didn't have time to put their minds and their hearts, to elucidate, to clear up the divrei achokim, to understand the disagreements between all the different factions, the different schools. Ad yamav sharebi, until the days of Rebbe. Shenasan HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Rebbe chen, he gave him like grace or good, whatever. He gave him chen be'enei Antoninus. Rebbe gave him charm in the eyes of Antoninus. Antoninus had an affinity, felt something towards Rebbe. Right? Antoninus Melech Romi, Keda Amen B'Avodah Zarah, like it said in Avodah Zarah, which we learned last week. V'nachu mitzara, and all the tzaros of Klal Yisrael, of Am Yisrael at this time, nachu, like rested, like menucha. V'shalach, and what did Rebbe do? Rebbe sent out the kibbutz kol talmidei Eretz Yisrael, and he gathered all the talmidim of Eretz Yisrael. V'ad yamav lo hayu mesech, and until Rebbe's day, there weren't clear organized mesechtas, there weren't clear organized tractates. Everybody worked for themselves. Every Talmud, he heard something from someone who was either greater than him, or his Rebbe, or someone that came earlier than him. Gerasa, he would learn it, right? And he would learn it, and he would write it down. Simanim, he would write. This is the name. This is I heard this in the name of this person. Middle of this first line on this third page. And when they finally gathered together, Amar kol echad masha shama, right? This guy, Rabbi Yoshua, said what he has, all of his notes. And Rabbi Elazar said his notes. And Rabbi Elazar said his notes. And Rabbi Huda said his. And Rabbi Meir said his. And they all had like a Zoom conference, or maybe a real conference. V'nasnu leiv levara. And they hashed it all out. They hammered it all out. And they understood what the machlokas was. And all the v'tamei hamachlokas, the reasons, right? Divrei miru'uyin, who agrees with whom and who doesn't agree with whom. That's why you could sometimes say that this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, but the chachamim means that Rabbi Eliezer said one thing, and all the other rabbis in the room and all the other notes said, no, we say chayiv, not pater, or we say kosher, tameh, tahor. They got everybody in the room, we got everybody's notes, and he went through everybody's notes. And then what did he do? Then, after all the notes, he organized it into Nezikin, right? These are the laws of damages. And then Yevamos, right? And then Kodshim. And that's how it went. And the only reason he was able to have, let's say, this conference, this meeting, this time to collect the notes, to go through the notes, to edit everything was only because of his relationship with Antoninus. And that's why it played such a vital, critical, crucial role in Jewish history. This relationship really, all of Torah, Antoninus, I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe there's stuff I don't know about Antoninus, but he must be getting unbelievable schar in Shamayim because of his, we'll call it menschlichkeit, because of his menschlichkeit towards Rebbe Yehuda, right? We have a Mishnah. And because we have a Mishnah, we ultimately have a Gemara. And because we have a Gemara, we have a Masorah. We have a halachic system. We have halachic standards. We have a Masorah. We have a heritage. We have a heritage that goes all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. What an unbelievable point that Rashi makes. but we're only able to fully comprehend and fully appreciate it because we learned the Gemaras last week in Avodah Zarah and then this week in Sanhedrin. Have a fabulous, fabulous week.